I drove back to my hometown planning to surprise my parents, but what I found instead turned my stomach. My mom and dad were being treated like servants in the very house I had bought with my own money, ordered around by my sister-in-law and her shameless parasitic mother as if they were hired help. In that moment, I made myself a promise. They were going to pay for every cruel thing they had done. Before we get into what happened, tell me in the comments where you are watching this from, and do not forget to like and subscribe so this channel can keep growing and bringing you more stories like this. My name is Hannah. 2 years earlier, I had emptied almost all of my savings to buy a big old country house with a wide yard in my hometown, plus several acres of fertile fields behind it. I worked like crazy in the city so my parents, George and Sarah, could finally enjoy a peaceful retirement, gardening a little, watching the crops turn gold, drinking tea on the porch without ever worrying about money. Every time we talked on the phone, they insisted they were happy and well, eating plenty, telling me not to worry. I missed them so much that I decided to come home without warning, arms full of their favorite snacks, ready to hug the two people I loved most. By the time my car rolled onto the narrow village road, the air that used to feel fresh suddenly felt tight in my chest. Maybe I was just tired after 5 hours of driving. Maybe it was something else. A bad feeling crawled up my spine. When I parked across from the house, my smile froze. The place looked different. Not because it was neglected, on the contrary, it was crowded with gaudy decorations that had nothing to do with my mom's simple taste. Expensive flower pots lined the porch, but not with herbs or vegetables. It all screamed show-off, not home. From behind my tinted window, I turned off the engine so no one would hear me arrive. I wanted to watch for a moment before I jumped out shouting, "Surprise!" My eyes landed on a thin, older man sweeping the big yard under the harsh midday sun, his back curved painfully. It was my dad. He should have been sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, not breaking his back like a groundskeeper. Before I had time to process the shock, a shrill voice cut through the air from the porch. A heavy-set woman about my mother's age sat there fanning herself, a jar of snacks in her lap, barking at my father because some dust had blown toward her feet. That was Linda, my brother's mother-in-law, the woman my parents had always called our in-law from out of town. Her insults were vicious and casual, calling my dad a useless old man who could not even sweep properly. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. How dare a guest in my parents' house talk to him that way while she lounged like a queen? Then the side door opened, and my mom staggered out, carrying a huge basin of wet laundry. I knew she had a bad back. I had bought a large automatic washing machine so she would never have to scrub clothes by hand again. Yet there she was, panting, while my sister-in-law Mia sauntered behind her, phone in hand, pointing toward the clothesline and ordering Mom to hurry with Mia's laundry because she had to leave for a women's savings club meeting. Tears blurred my vision. This was not the peaceful old age I had promised them. This was slavery. In that instant, I realized every cheerful phone call had been a lie to keep me from worrying so I could focus on my career. Guilt crashed over me. I had believed their happy stories and visited so rarely. I wanted to explode, to kick open the gate and slap those smug faces, but years of surviving in the city had taught me that fury without proof only gets twisted against you. If I stormed in screaming now, they would cry and play the victims, and my parents would end up blamed. I needed to see how deep the rot went. I wiped my tears, straightened my hijab, and forced my face into a calm mask. Then I restarted the car and slowly turned into the yard, tapping the horn once. Everything on the porch froze. Linda and Mia looked up, startled. My parents turned too, and what I saw in their eyes hurt more than anything, fear, as if my arrival might make their lives even harder. I stepped out of the car with a neutral expression, hiding the storm inside. Linda rushed toward me, her perfume sickeningly strong compared to the sweat on my father's shirt. "Oh, Hannah, you're home. Why didn't you tell us? I would have cooked something special," she cooed, arms open for a hug. I sidestepped her embrace, pretending to adjust the strap of my bag, and looked straight through her sugary smile. The idea of her cooking anything was laughable. Those manicured hands had never touched a kitchen knife. I only gave a short nod and walked past her, heading straight for my parents. I took my dad's rough, calloused hand. It felt hot, as if he had a fever. Then my mom's wrinkled, damp fingers, swollen from too much time in soapy water. "Dad, Mom, I'm home," I whispered. My mom's eyes filled with tears. her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something, but she glanced nervously at Linda and only murmured, "Thank God you're safe, dear," as if that was all that mattered. I tried to lead them to the comfortable chairs on the porch, the solid wood set I had bought so my dad could relax there every afternoon. Mia cut in quickly, her voice sweet but sharp. Hannah, they've just come from the fields. They're still dirty. Let them clean up at the back so the new chairs don't get stained," she said, as if my parents were muddy boots, not the owners of the house. Those chairs had been my gift to them. Now they were not allowed to sit on them. I swallowed my anger and let my parents shuffle toward the back while Linda and Mia ushered me into the living room like a guest. Inside, the changes hit me like another slap. The framed photos of my graduation and our small family had disappeared from the walls. In their place hung an oversized wedding portrait of Mia and my younger brother Eric, plus a glamorous studio close-up of Linda smiling like a celebrity. My parents' living room now looked like a shrine to those two women. "Eric's in the shower," Linda said casually, sprawling on the plushest sofa, her feet tucked up. "Sit, dear. You must be exhausted from the drive." I smiled politely and asked to use the bathroom first. In truth, I wanted to inspect my house. I walked down the hallway toward the master bedroom, the one with the private bathroom and the orthopedic mattress I had ordered especially for my parents' aging backs. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, clothes and handbags I did not recognize lay scattered around, and the dressing table was buried under expensive beauty products that had nothing to do with my mother. So, my suspicion was right. Mia and Linda had moved themselves into the best room. Then where were my parents sleeping? My feet carried me toward the back of the house near the old storage area. A flimsy curtain hung where a solid door used to be. When I pulled it aside, my breath caught. The room was little more than a storage closet with a bare cement floor. No bed, just a thin mat laid directly on the cold surface, a lumpy pillow and a worn blanket. Cardboard boxes were piled in the corner, like the room still did not belong to any human being. My parents sat there, legs stretched out, quietly massaging each other's tired limbs. Dad winced as Mom rubbed balm into his lower back. "Just hold on a bit longer," she whispered. "Maybe if Eric's in a good mood, we can ask for a little money for medicine." Dad shook his head immediately. "Don't. He'll just get yelled at again. I'll manage." I covered my mouth to muffle my sob, pulled out my phone and started recording. That was my first piece of evidence. That night, the performance continued at dinner. The main dining room table was overflowing with fried chicken, meat soup, fresh fruit, enough food for a feast. Eric had come home. He looked thin and worn out, avoiding my eyes. We all sat down except my parents. "Where are Mom and Dad?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay flat. Mia answered easily between bites of chicken. "Oh, they prefer eating in the back, sitting on the floor. They say chairs make their legs ache." I knew it was a lie the second she said it. Taking my still empty plate, I stood. Eric tried to stop me, mumbling that I should eat first, but I brushed his hand aside and walked to the back kitchen. There I found the truth. My parents sitting on the floor with plates of cold white rice, leftover soup broth, and a single burnt piece of tofu each. They were eating quickly, clearly starving after a day of hard work. My heart shattered into pieces. I went back to the dining room and looked at each of them in turn. Linda, smug. Mia, lazy and satisfied. Eric, cowardly and guilty. "Why are you staring at us like that?" Mia snapped, annoyed by my silence. I gave her a small, icy smile. "I was just thinking how delicious food must taste when it's bought with someone else's sweat," I said softly. "Enjoy it while you can. You never know when that luxury might be taken away." The room went still. Linda put her spoon down a little too hard. I did not eat that night. I spent it planning. Before dawn, I heard movement outside the guest room where I slept. When I peeked through the curtain, my parents were already heading out. Dad carrying a hoe on his fragile shoulder, Mom holding a lunch container and a thermos. They walked slowly down the path toward the fields behind the house. Those fields were supposed to be Dad's joy, something for him to supervise, not work like a laborer. I washed quickly, dressed in casual clothes and a simple hijab, and slipped out quietly so no one would notice. Then I followed at a distance along a side path until the whole spread of golden crops opened up before me. The land was beautiful, about 5 acres of ripe grain swaying in the breeze, ready to be harvested. I had bought it with my annual bonus and years of savings so Dad could have an activity he loved. not a burden. Instead, he was in the thick of it, backbent, cutting stalks alongside hired workers half his age. Every few minutes he had to stop and grab his lower back, breathing through the pain. On the edge of the field, Mom did not rest either. She crouched, picking up every grain that fell so nothing would be wasted, her wrinkled hands moving non-stop under the rising sun. There was no joy in their faces, only resignation. Around mid-morning, a truck pulled up on the dirt road. At the same time, Eric's motorbike roared into view. But it was not Eric who climbed off. It was Mia, dressed like she was shooting a music video. Big sunglasses, a lace parasol, a mask to protect her skin, clothes far too fancy for a field. She did not even glance at my parents, who were slick with sweat. Instead, she walked straight to the buyer, a burly man carrying a leather satchel. I moved closer, hidden behind a clump of banana trees, and hit record on my phone again. The buyer handed Mia several thick bundles of cash, money from the harvest that rightfully belonged to my parents. Nice. The yield is great this season, Mia said, eyes shining as she counted. Remember, don't ever tell my in-laws the full amount. They get confused with numbers. The man just nodded and left. As Mia slid the cash into her handbag, my dad climbed up the narrow ridge toward her, his legs caked in mud, chest heaving. Mia, he asked quietly, could I have a little? Just about 200. My joint medicine ran out. Last night my legs hurt so much I couldn't sleep, felt like they were being stabbed. Mia looked at him like he was a beggar on the street. She snapped her bag shut. Oh, come on, you're so dramatic. A little ache and you want medicine again? That's because you don't move enough. Work more, your muscles won't be so stiff. She flicked her hand dismissively. This money is already allocated. I have to pay my savings club, refresh my skincare, and buy a new bag for the wedding next week. I can't show up looking cheap as your daughter-in-law. Just walk it off. The pain will disappear. The cruelty rolled off her tongue so easily it made me dizzy. Mom hurried over and tugged on Dad's arm. Enough, George. Don't ask again. Poor Mia, she has so many expenses, she said in a trembling voice, more afraid of upsetting her than worried about my father's health. My stomach turned. I stayed hidden until Mia sped away on the motorbike, then headed back through another path, calling my lawyer from the city as I walked. It was time to lock down every legal document tied to this property. The next day, the house exploded into activity. Linda had decided to throw a huge women's gathering and savings club party, claiming it was a Thanksgiving celebration for her daughter and son-in-law's supposed success. Catering trucks arrived with chafing dishes and trays of expensive food, lamb curry, skewers, desserts. The front yard was covered with tents and satin-draped chairs like a small wedding. Linda and Mia flitted around, fully made up and dressed in glittering outfits, giving orders to the decorators as if they owned the place. Linda's neck, ears, and wrists were stacked with thick gold jewelry. The same gold I knew came from the money I had been sending for my dad's medical bills. My parents were not dressed up or sitting waiting to greet guests. They wore their faded, everyday clothes. Linda ordered my dad to haul heavy crates of syrup bottles to the buffet area. He limped slightly from the pain in his knees, but she only yelled at him to move faster. My mom was told to wipe every plate and set every fork and spoon until they shine. Do it properly, Sarah, Linda barked. My guests are picky. They'll be disgusted if anything's dusty. She did not care that the woman she was berating was the rightful owner of the house she was using to show off. Guests began arriving. Neighbors, village ladies, relatives. Linda stood at the door, laughing loudly, saying, "Come in, try the food. Only the best catering for my daughter's celebration." I watched it all from my bedroom window, my anger cooling into something sharp and controlled. When the time came, I changed. I put on my best blazer and tailored pants, a simple but elegant hijab, and a touch of firm makeup. I was not going to show up as a naive hometown girl. I was coming as who I really was, the successful woman who had paid for everything these leeches were parading around as their own. I took a long breath, picked up my work bag, inside, a leather folder and my phone, and stepped out. The clack of my heels on the tiles cut through the noise of the party as I walked toward the main room. The sight that greeted me near the buffet table almost made me lose it. My dad was pouring bright red syrup into a guest's glass, his hand shaking so much that some spilled onto the table. The guest frowned in annoyance. Linda snatched the glass from Dad, snapping, "If you're this clumsy when you're old, don't embarrass me. Go wash glasses in the back." My father lowered his head like a scolded servant. That was my breaking point. "Stop," I said, loudly enough that the chatter in the room died at once. Every head turned toward me. Linda spun around, surprise and panic flashing across her face. Mia stiffened. Eric paled. I walked up to my father and slid my arm firmly around his shoulders, feeling how thin and fragile he had become. Then I looked straight at Linda. "Why is my father washing glasses at your party?" I asked, my voice low but slicing through the air. "In this house, the owner should be sitting in the front row being honored, not treated like unpaid staff. Don't you agree?" Linda let out a nervous laugh, waving her fan. "Oh, Hannah, you're joking, right? He insisted on helping. This is a celebration for my kids' house. Of course their parents are involved. You know how old folks are, they can't sit still," she said, turning to the guests as if seeking their agreement. "Your kids' house?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. I set my bag down, unzipped it, and pulled out a leather folder. "Let's clear this up properly in front of everyone." I turned to our community leader, Mr. Collins, who happened to be seated near the front. "Sir, would you mind reading this out loud? It's the original title deed for the house and land we're standing on." I handed him the document with the official seal and emblem. The room went silent. You could hear the rustle of paper as he adjusted his glasses and read, "Registered owner, Hannah," he announced. "It's clearly in your name. Not in George's, not Eric's, and certainly not anyone else's." A hum of shock passed through the crowd. I looked back at Linda and Mia. Mia's face had drained of color, her red lipstick a harsh slash against her skin. Linda's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "So no," I said calmly. "This is not your children's house. It is mine. I bought it for my parents so they could live in dignity, and you've turned it into your personal stage while you work them like servants." Then I turned to my mother and gently took her hand, raising it so everyone could see. The skin was cracked and white from detergent, nails broken, knuckles swollen. "These are not the hands of a woman who just likes cleaning," I said, my voice shaking. "These are the hands of someone forced to scrub and wash every day in her old age." I released Mom's hand and rolled up my dad's sleeve. Dark bruises ringed his upper arm. He flinched as the fabric brushed them. "And this?" I asked quietly. "Is this from falling in the shower, like you told everyone?" My dad's eyes darted toward Mia, pure fear written in his face. He did not answer out loud. He did not have to. Everyone saw the truth in his silence. Mia jumped in, shrieking, "He slipped. He's clumsy. Stop making drama, Hannah." I fixed her with a cold stare. "Since when do shower falls leave bruises shaped like finger marks?" I asked. Even the guests who knew nothing about medicine murmured in agreement. Realizing the tide was turning, Linda clutched her chest and suddenly collapsed to the floor in a theatrical faint, hoping the attention would swing back to her, like it always had. Mia screamed, "My mother! Look what you've done!" Some guests stood up in alarm. I did not move. "Mr. Collins," I said evenly, "you're a retired nurse, right? Please check if she's actually fainted. If she has, we'll call an ambulance. If not, I have a bucket of fish pond water outside that might help wake her up." At the mention of cold, dirty water, Linda's eyelids fluttered suspiciously. Within seconds, she came to, groaning dramatically. The room was no longer buying her act. Mia realized the pity card was not working and switched tactics. She rushed to a small table and grabbed a plastic folder. "You want paperwork?" she shouted. "Fine. Eric is the only son. He has full inheritance rights. He signed this transfer giving me control of everything. There's his signature and the stamp. Legally, that makes me the lady of this house, not you. You're just a guest, Hannah. You can't kick us out." She waved the crumpled letter in the air, then shoved it toward Mr. Collins. The word stamp sounded impressive to our neighbors. I could hear them whispering, unsure again. Eric stared at his shoes, guilt all over him. I laughed softly, the sound cold. "Oh, Mia," I said, shaking my head. "You really should spend less time shopping and more time learning basic law. Eric can't give you what he doesn't own." I held up the official deed Mr. Collins still held. "This title has been in my name from day one. I did that on purpose to protect my parents from exactly this kind of parasite. Whatever piece of paper Eric signed for you is worthless. You can't transfer a house you never owned. All that letter proves is that you're willing to bully my brother into signing anything you want." The neighbors' doubts evaporated. Their murmurs turned sharp and angry, directed at Mia and Linda. "And since some of you might wonder if I'm exaggerating," I continued, pulling my phone from my pocket, "let me introduce you to the real Mia and Linda when no guests are around." I tapped play and connected the phone to the party speaker. Linda's voice boomed through the room, calling my father a useless old fool, saying he did not deserve to eat if he could not work fast enough. Then Mia's voice, mocking and venomous. "Stop wasting money on medicine. If you're hurting so much, go ahead and die so you don't bother us." My father's trembling request for pain relief. My mom's frightened attempts to calm him. All of it echoed through the hall. No one could pretend it was edited. The raw cruelty in their tone was unmistakable. Faces around us hardened. Some of the older women shook their heads in disgust. A few men clenched their fists. Linda clapped her hands over her ears, shouting that it was fake, that I had doctored the audio, but nobody believed her. Years of carefully curated image, kind mother-in-law, glamorous, successful daughter, crumbled in seconds. "You've all heard it now," I said quietly when the recording ended. "This is what my parents live with every day in the house I bought for their happiness. Their food, their medicine, their rest, all stolen so these two could play queen. If I had kicked them out right then, it might have felt good for a moment. But I wanted more than an emotional victory. I wanted them to feel the weight of every dollar and every tear they had taken. So I walked to a side table, took out a thick notebook, a calculator, and a pen, and sat down facing them like I was starting a business meeting. "Here's how this is going to work," I said. "Nothing in life is free. You've been living for free on my parents' backs for 2 years. Today we calculate the bill." Mia scoffed, voice shaking. "Wow, you really are money hungry. I thought you were rich. Why argue about money with family?" "Don't you dare use the word family after what you've done," I replied. I started punching numbers into the calculator, speaking clearly so everyone could hear. First, rent. You've occupied the master bedroom and used the entire property, electricity, water, internet, for 2 years without paying a cent, while the owners slept in a storage room. A similar house here would rent for at least $700 a month. 2 years, 24 months. That's about $16,800. Second, the harvests. These fields yield profit 3 times a year. Conservatively, about $2,000 net each time. 6 harvests make $12,000. All of that should have gone into my parents' retirement fund. Instead, it went into your jewelry and handbags. I could see Mia and Linda flinch at every figure. The guests were doing the math in their heads, some of them gasping. Third, I continued mercilessly, unpaid labor and damages. You turned my parents into full-time housekeepers and farm workers, no pay, no rest. A live-in couple doing all that would cost at least $800 a month. 2 years is more than $19,000. Add medical costs for my dad's back and the emotional damage of constant humiliation, and I'm being generous, making the total around $30,000. I hit the equal button and held up the display. That's what you owe us, and that's the kind version. Linda shrieked, "Where do you expect us to get that kind of money? Are you trying to kill us? We don't have it." She threw herself at Eric, clutching his pants. "Do something. Your sister's gone crazy. She's blackmailing us." I closed the notebook with a sharp snap. "This is not blackmail. This is restitution," I said. "And no, I don't think you're broke. I see the gold on your arms, the luxury bags in your room, the motorbike outside. Those were bought with money that should have been my parents." I stood and walked toward Mia until she backed into the wall. "So here are your options. Option 1, you pay back every cent, starting with handing over every asset you bought with that stolen money. Anything left, we'll formalize in a repayment plan through a lawyer." Option 2, I added, pausing just long enough for everyone to feel the weight of my words. "I file the police report that's already drafted in my bag. The charges would be fraud, embezzlement, forging inheritance documents, and elder abuse. With the recordings and all these witnesses, you'd be looking at several years in prison. And trust me, prison food doesn't come with lamb curry and fancy dresses." Mia crumpled, sobbing. Linda babbled that we should settle this in the family, that involving police was too far. I checked my watch. "I'll give you 1 hour to decide," I said. Try to run, and the officers waiting outside will gladly chase you. Either way, today is the day you stop living off my parents." While they spiraled, one person in the room was fighting a different battle. My brother Eric. He stood frozen near the doorway, eyes swimming, shoulders hunched like a scolded child. For years, he had been the kind of man who avoided conflict at any cost, letting whoever yelled loudest control him. And Mia had always yelled the loudest. She took his paycheck every month, chose his clothes, forbade him from visiting our parents too often. He had let it happen, and now the results were laid bare in front of the whole neighborhood. Mia grabbed his shirt, shaking him. "Say something. You're the man here, aren't you? Tell her that debt is nonsense. Tell her we're not paying. Defend your wife, or do you want me to rot in jail?" she screamed. Usually Eric would have shrunk and apologized. This time something cracked. He caught both of Mia's wrists mid-blow, his grip unexpectedly firm. "Enough," he said hoarsely. She stared at him, stunned. "Let go, you're hurting me." "I said enough," he roared. The whole room jumped. I had never heard him raise his voice like that. His chest was heaving, eyes glossy with tears and rage. "You call me useless, a coward," he said, voice shaking. "You're right. I've been a coward. Not because I earn little, but because I've let a woman like you trample the two people who gave me life." He turned toward our parents, pointing at Mom's ruined hands. "Look at her. Look at what you've done. These are the hands that fed me, washed me, prayed for me, and you treat her like trash." Eric's voice broke. He dropped to his knees in front of our parents, clutching our father's legs. "Dad, Mom, forgive me," he sobbed. "I was so afraid of my wife yelling that I abandoned you. I let her kick you out of your own room. I let her spend the money my sister sent. I'm not a son. I'm a disgrace." My dad bent forward and put his thin arms around his son's shoulders, crying softly. "Get up, son," he whispered. "We forgave you a long time ago. Just don't let it happen again." I had to blink hard to keep my own tears from falling. This was what I had wanted more than money, for Eric to finally stand up and come home to us. Eric got to his feet slowly, wiping his face. There was new steel in his eyes when he turned back to Mia and Linda. "Mia," he said quietly, "from this moment on, I refuse to be your puppet. I, Eric, divorce you." The words dropped like a bomb. Mia screamed as if he had stabbed her. "You can't leave me. Who will take care of you? Who will cook for you?" "I can figure out how to cook, or I'll eat takeout," he answered coldly. "Anything is better than eating while my parents starve in the kitchen. And you, Linda, you're no longer my family. Get out of my sister's house, right now." Panic flooded Linda's face as she realized her golden goose had cut the rope. I stepped back in, my voice cool again. "As I said earlier, the debt is yours and Mia's. Eric won't be paying it. Your behavior was your choice." I gestured toward the hallway. "You have 10 minutes to pack your personal clothes, only clothes. All jewelry, cash, and anything bought with my parents' money stays here as partial repayment. If you try to hide so much as a ring, I'll consider it theft and we'll go straight to option 2, prison." 2 police officers, one male, one female, who had been waiting discreetly outside, stepped just inside the front door, arms folded. They did not need to say a word. Their presence was enough. The next 10 minutes felt like hours. From the master bedroom came the sounds of drawers yanked open, suitcases thrown, muffled sobbing and angry muttering. I stood in the living room doorway, arms crossed, watching like a hawk. Behind me, the female officer waited calmly. My parents sat on the sofa with cups of tea, still shaking, processing the idea that this nightmare was really ending. Eric sat on the porch, staring at the ground, too drained to look at his soon-to-be ex-wife again. Finally, the door opened. Linda dragged a heavy suitcase, eyes swollen and makeup smeared. Mia followed, carrying an overstuffed backpack and 2 shopping bags, clutching them like lifelines. They tried to hurry past me toward the exit. "Stop," I said. They froze. "I told you, clothes only. Officer, please check." The policewoman gently but firmly took Mia's bag and dumped it on the table. Mixed in with t-shirts and underwear were a velvet jewelry box, several gold necklaces, rings, a designer watch, and thick bundles of cash, the harvest money from the day before. The neighbors who had stayed to watch gasped. "Thieves," someone muttered from the doorway. Linda's suitcase held more of the same. Stacked bangles, Heavy earrings, another wad of cash. Take them, I told the officer. All of this was bought with money that wasn't theirs. Now the jewelry you're wearing, I added, looking at Linda's neck and wrists. She clutched her necklace reflexively. This was a gift from Mia, from her savings, she protested weakly. Paid for with whose money? I asked. Eric's tiny salary, my father's harvests. Take it off. With shaking fingers, Linda unhooked the necklace and slipped off every bracelet and ring, placing them on the table one by one. Mia did the same, removing her diamond studs, her sleek watch, her last symbols of status. I picked up Mia's expensive handbag. This stays, I said. Here's a plastic trash bag for your clothes. That broke her. She howled as she stuffed her things into the crude black bag, the same way she had once treated my parents' belongings. When they finally stepped outside carrying their cheap bags, the sky had darkened and a light rain had started. Neighbors lined the fence, watching. Some shook their heads, others simply turned away. Don't ever come back, one woman called. We didn't know before, but now we do. At the gate, Mia turned, tears and mascara streaming, and looked at Eric. At least drive us to the bus station, she begged. Have some pity, Eric. He lifted his head and met her eyes, but there was nothing left there for her. Walk, he said quietly. Think of it as exercise. My father walked to the fields with his legs hurting because of you. Feel that pain, just a little. She choked on a sob and slowly turned away. We watched them shrink down the village road, rain soaking their fancy clothes, their plastic bags bumping against their legs. They looked nothing like the glittering queen and princess who had taken over our house. When they disappeared around the bend, I felt something unclench in my chest. The officers took official notes and left, promising to follow up on the legal side. I assured them I would still file the report. Any assets the law could recover later would go straight to my parents. By evening, the house was quiet for the first time in a long while. Not an oppressive quiet, but a peaceful one. That night, my parents slept in the master bedroom again on the soft mattress I had bought for them. Eric and I stayed up late cleaning, taking down gaudy decorations, pulling down those giant portraits of Mia and Linda and rehanging our family photos. It felt like performing a cleansing ritual. The house was ours again, not just legally, but spiritually. Over the next weeks, we called contractors, repaired what needed fixing, and threw out everything that still smelled like them. Right down to burning their old mattress in the backyard, laughing as the smoke carried away the last bad energy. A year passed. Time flowed like a calm river, smoothing rough stones. The once heavy house turned into a bright, warm home. I repainted walls in light colors, filled the yard with herbs and my mom's favorite jasmine bushes, until every morning the air was sweet with their scent. My dad's health improved drastically with proper rest, good food, and regular treatment I gladly paid for. He put on weight, his cheeks filled out, and his back, though still stiff sometimes, no longer screamed in pain. He did not swing a hoe anymore. Now he strolled out to the fields just to check on the workers and sit in the little shed with a mug of coffee, watching the crops sway. Eric kept his promise too. He quit his low-paid office job and threw himself into running the farm properly. He took courses online, talked to experienced farmers, learned about modern techniques. His skin grew darker from the sun, his hands rough and strong, but his eyes were clear and proud. Every harvest now was transparent. He sat with Dad at the kitchen table, counting the income, deciding together how much to save, how much to reinvest, how much to set aside for my parents' medical needs. At night, he massaged Dad's legs, helped Mom with chores, and never again let her lift anything heavier than a kettle. "This is my penance," he told me once. "I can't erase what I let happen, but I can make sure it never happens again." One late afternoon, I sat on the porch with my laptop on my knees, finishing some work while Mom brought out fresh fried bananas and tea. The wind was soft, the sky turning orange. Dad laughed with a neighbor who had dropped by to chat. The house hummed with simple happiness. Meanwhile, Karma was busy somewhere else. News eventually reached us through a relative in the next town, who had seen Mia and Linda after they disappeared that rainy day. With no jewelry left, no house, and no husband to lean on, they had ended up renting a single cramped room in a run-down neighborhood. The money from selling their fancy clothes and accessories ran out in a month. Mia discovered the hard way that a pretty face and sharp tongue are not job skills. No office wanted to hire someone with no experience and a terrible attitude. In the end, she took the only job she could get. Washing dishes at a crowded roadside diner, standing for hours every night with her arms plunged into greasy, soapy water. Her once pampered hands cracked and blistered, nails broken, skin darkened and rough. The owner was notoriously harsh. If a plate came out with a spot, he shouted at her in front of customers, calling her slow and useless. She gritted her teeth and kept scrubbing. She needed the money too badly to protest. Linda's fate was even harsher. The stress of losing her comfortable life, plus years of unchecked high blood pressure, caught up with her. A few months after they left our house, she suffered a stroke that left half her body paralyzed. She lay on a thin mattress in their tiny room, dependent on the daughter she had taught to be selfish. And Mia, exhausted from long shifts at the diner, often left her mother hungry until late at night, snapping at her when she needed help. Neighbors reported hearing Mia shouting, "You're such a burden, just die already, I'm tired of cleaning up after you," whenever Linda soiled herself. Those were almost the exact words she had once thrown at my father. Now they came from her own daughter's mouth, like karma echoing through generations. I did not feel joy hearing those updates. What I felt was a deep, steady sense of justice. They never paid back the full $30,000 in cash. The jewelry and bike we seized only covered part of it. But in a way, they were paying with something more valuable, a lifetime of living with the consequences of who they truly were. That debt was not mine to collect anymore. Life and God were handling it. As the sun slipped behind the fields, Mom called softly, "Come in, dear, it's time for evening prayer." I closed my laptop and looked around one last time, at my parents' relaxed faces, the tidy yard, the house that finally felt like the haven I had dreamed of when I first signed the papers. I thought of that first day, watching from the car window as my parents were treated like servants in their own home. If I had done nothing, they might still be living that nightmare. Instead, we had turned the page. The best revenge was not screaming or even sending anyone to jail. It was giving my parents back their peace and building a life so full of love that there was no room left for the parasites. I stood up and headed inside, closing the door gently behind me, leaving the darkness and old wounds outside. Inside there was warmth, laughter, and prayers whispered for better days. Justice had been done. My parents were safe, and that was enough. If you've made it this far, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you believe karma really comes around. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.